Welcome back to the Yaffee program. We're always here on News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN, Revolution and Common Sense. And if you need, you need more of that common sense for the rest of your day, you can see my stuff on social media, like the Yaffee Facebook page. Follow me on X at Yaffee or Instagram at Yaffee Live. Headline here from the Daily Wire. It says, why are Democrats defending a narco-terrorist dictator? This was written by Hans von Spakovsky, and he is the new legal fellow with Advancing American Freedom. You can find out more about them at advancingamericanfreedom.com. Hans, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Well, sure. Thanks for having me on.
So you have this article, why are Democrats defending a narco-terrorist dictator? You're talking about Maduro, of course. So
right.
Talk a little bit about what you mean here.
Well, look, all you have to do is go to the human rights reports issued by the U.S. State Department in 2023. When Joe Biden was the president, the State Department issued this devastating, almost 80-page report of just how bad Nicolas Maduro and his thugs were who were running the country. I mean, it's tough reading. Unlawful and arbitrary killings, political prisoners, punishment of family members for alleged offenses by relatives, child labor. It's trafficking in persons. It's just one thing after another, And look, you leave the State Department report, and then you go to the actual criminal indictment. And remember, again, he was indicted in New York in 2020 by a federal grand jury. And in essence, what the grand jury says is that Maduro basically turned the Venezuelan government into a drug and weapons smuggling operation. I mean, some of the stuff's just unbelievable. He was issuing diplomatic passports to the cartel members so that they could safely get away with smuggling drugs. And, people have been complaining about the drug smugglers we've been hitting in the Caribbean. Well, he set up this whole operation, and again, they describe it in the indictment, of loading what they called go-fast vessels, fishing boats, and container ships with 200 to 250 tons of cocaine a year that were going from Venezuela and being smuggled up in the United States. So, I have no sympathy whatsoever for Maduro, unlike folks like J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois.
Yeah, and you actually wrote about what he said here. He said Trump's action was designed to distract from Epstein, which that is like their line for everything these days. Everything is about, oh my gosh. So the explosion of health and homeowners insurance costs. So they're saying he did this just because Maduro is a distraction. AOC said it's all about oil and regime change. And you're asking the question, shouldn't we all be celebrating it since Joe Biden was the one who put a bounty on his head?
Yeah, I mean, and look, the long-suffering citizens of Venezuela, I mean, they're openly cheering about this. And look, let's not forget, Venezuela used to be the wealthiest country in South America. And Maduro turned it into a bankrupt basket case. So bad that people throughout the country were starving, having all kinds of problems, and that's the person again that Pritzker and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also they want to downplay his tyrannical brutality. But she also claimed, "Oh, this is just about oil," and she also repeated, "These must be the talking points of the left." To distract folks from Epstein and healthcare costs. Yeah, right.
So, well, and we know what the reaction would have been if Biden did it. It would have been the direct opposite. And Biden could have done it. He was the one who started the bounty. So we know it's a direct opposite. Now, there is an argument by some, though, even the Rand Pauls of the world, who say he didn't really have the legal authority to do this. They tried to pass something in the Senate to kind of rein in some of his war powers, didn't pass. What do you think about that argument?
No, Rand Paul is wrong on that, and that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court long ago held that there is nothing unconstitutional or illegal, for example, of American agents kidnapping and basically seizing criminals and indicted criminals in other countries and bringing them back to the United States. That, in fact, as you know, was tested when we went into Panama. And it was almost the exact same situation. It was almost exactly alike. There was a criminal indictment for the same kind of thing, drug smuggling in the U.S., and all of the courts said there's nothing wrong with that, and the president, he's got the authority to do that.
So what do you think happens next in Venezuela? Any thoughts? I mean, you have the vice president made president. She's not really all that great either, but there's a lot of pressure now on her to make changes, on the government to make changes. What do you think happens next?
Well, one of the biggest problems they have is getting rid of the Cuban mercenaries. Remember, Venezuela has been supplying oil to Cuba, which also is an economic basket case. And in exchange for that oil, apparently the Cubans sent something like 15,000 Cuban troops, basically mercenaries, to help keep Maduro in power. And if they're ever going to try to bring the country back, they have to be sure that those Cubans are basically thrown out of the country.
Speaking with Hans von Spakovsky, he's got an article here in the Daily Wire. Why are Democrats defending a narco-terrorist dictator? Outside of getting Maduro, there has been some debate on whether the president really has the authority to bomb these cartel boats. Any thoughts on that?
I don't seem to recall anyone questioning the fact that Barack Obama was going after bombing and killing folks abroad, particularly terrorists. He ordered something like, I think, close to 2,000 strike missions like that, several of which actually killed U.S. citizens. And again, that is within the power of the president. And like I said, back then, people weren't really questioning his authority to do that. And I think that's within his authority as commander-in-chief. Certainly no Supreme Court has never questioned that.
Yeah, that's true. I guess they could try to take it to the courts, but I can't imagine, you're right, it would go very far in the courts either. I'm speaking with Hans von Spakovsky. He's a legal fellow with Advancing American Freedom. Wanted to move on to another piece you have, this one at thehill.com. It says, authorities' inaction on threats against Trump voters is alarming. What threats are you talking about here? Well,
in 2024 in Pennsylvania, voters in many different parts of the state, so this wasn't an isolated incident, it included folks in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, received the identical, very threatening letter in the mail. It basically said, well, you're a Trump supporter, we know that, you don't know what may happen to you in the dead of night. I mean, it was in essence threats of potential death, damage to property, and apparently it never got investigated. The local police didn't do anything about it. The state police didn't do anything about it. The FBI didn't do anything about it, which is just, unbelievable. Now, yeah, it was an anonymous letter, but remember, they clearly came up with the people to target by cruising through neighborhoods and going after anybody who had a Trump political sign in their yard. Well, what is it that people have these days outside their homes? They have Ring cameras. And just a basic investigation might have found, for example, who was cruising through these different neighborhoods. Anyway, but the point is, law enforcement hasn't done anything about it. The Public Interest Legal Foundation, of which I'm the chair, we actually filed a lawsuit to try to get information from law enforcement about this, and they're all fighting us. The Justice Department, you would think that the Trump Justice Department would want to be cooperating, but the local U.S. attorney there has been trying to prevent us from getting information. They won't even admit whether they even opened an investigation. So we're hoping by bringing attention to this that maybe somebody in the White House will see it and tell the FBI and DOJ, hey, you need to get on this.
Yeah, that's true. Because there is a good chance now, because this is at the Hill, that someone in the White House could see it. I could see Trump maybe even posting about it on Truth Social. So that's a way. But it's funny because it sounds like that wasn't your original intention. You actually went to the source first, and then they ignored you, basically. So now you're trying to get attention another way. Yeah,
no, that's exactly right. And look, it's not even important that it was Trump voters. No voters. I don't care who they were supporting in last year's election, whether it was Harris or Trump. They should not be receiving death threats just because they had a political sign in their yard. And I will tell you that if this letter had been sent to Harris voters, I would be just as adamant that the feds, the state police, and the local police need to do something about this.
Speaking with Hans von Spakovsky, did want to ask you before you go, since you are a legal expert, we had the situation in Minneapolis where protesters, agitators stormed a church. Don Lemon kind of suggests in an interview they have a First Amendment right to do that. The Justice Department disagrees, says, no, that could go against civil rights there. What do you think happens here? Do they have a First Amendment right to protest a church service like this?
No. And in fact, they are violating federal criminal law. There's a federal law called the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. It was passed in 1994. And it makes it illegal to use force, threats, or physical obstruction to prevent people from going into abortion facilities or exercising religious freedom at places of worship. These individuals were, in fact, physically obstructing the churchgoers in Minnesota. They, therefore, pretty clearly violated this criminal statute. And, in fact, you don't have a First Amendment right. You have a First Amendment right to engage in speech. You don't have a First Amendment right to threaten people, to use force, or, as the statute says, to physically obstruct people who are exercising their religious freedom. And so I hope the Justice Department investigates them, and frankly, I hope they prosecute them.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to. I think that's going to happen. Now, Don Lemon is suggesting that he was a mere journalist observing, but do you think that's going to fly?
I don't know. I'm sure there was lots of video taken of what was going on, and the video may tell us whether he was just an observer or whether he helped organize or participated in this physical obstruction. And by the way, that law, it's called the FACE Act, it's been upheld in the courts.
Yep.
The courts have said it's perfectly constitutional. It is not a violation of the First Amendment.
Hans von Spakovsky, he is a legal fellow with the group Advancing American Freedom. You can read his column at thehill.com. It's got another one at the Daily Wire. Hans, really appreciate it. As always, we'll talk to you again in the future. Thanks for coming on.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be back in a moment here on the Yaffee program. Stay with us.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The Inside of You podcast.
You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Let's get inside of Sebastian Maniscalco.
This whole podcasting thing, right?
I was doing it before every actor and their mother wanted a podcast.
Did you wake up one day and go, I gotta talk to people? You're an actor.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're Barbara Walters.
Yeah.
How do we make...
It happened by accident. I had no idea people would start listening. But when you're genuine, that's what attracts people.
The Inside of You podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Get ready for The Rush with Max Crosby.
It's time.
Your all-access pass into the heart of the NFL.
This is the National Football League, and they don't play around. You got to be smart.
All-pro defensive end Max Crosby takes you beyond the field with exclusive insights.
I can say this because I've played them.
This is The Rush.
You guys already know what time it is. It was fire, and we'll be right back on the pod, and we'll be talking about it next week.
The Rush with Max Crosby. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.